The ARC will open itself up to widespread public membership as rapidly and extensively as is practically manageable, at as low a cost as is possible and desirable, because nothing's free.
Coach Colin, coolest high-performance coach in the world. And if you want the absolute best takes of the podcasts and videos you love, please hit that subscribe button. Let's get into the third episode of the ARC Files. In this episode of the ARC Files, I'm going to be covering membership. I'm going to be covering the voting mechanism in place, the public voting mechanism in place, how and when the conference will be and work, the hopes of the people involved, and that's actually Dr. Peterson talking about how he hopes the organizing committee will see things and operate, and also the vision we will pursue. And that's actually a question that Dr. Peterson is posing towards the ARC. Let's get into it.
So that everyone interested can aid in voluntarily formulating this story and strategy, and to discuss how its implementation might be encouraged. Now, I set up a mailing list already, which will be a precursor, let's say, to a broad membership list, and I'll put the link to the mailing list in this video so that you can sign up. There's about 30,000 people that have signed up to that mailing list already.
Here's my hope for the membership. If I see a membership that's $1,000, $1,500, I'm going to feel like they're not really staying true to the whole wanting the public involved. Now, I don't know if this membership is what gets us into the conferences, it is what gets us a real voice, but if it is, and they put that type of price point, they're Xing a lot of us out. They're excluding a lot of us. Now, the price point I would love to see is like $120. That would tell me that they're very interested in having the public involved in a big way. If I see that, I'm going to be really happy. But as for the next clip, we're moving on to, where are we moving on to? We're moving on to the public voting mechanism that they have in place. Now, let's hear a little bit about this, because this is actually very interesting, and we feel like it's been done before, you know, in our regular voting system, but I feel like this is a little different.
Now, we're going to put up a website where the questions I'm posing today, or we're posing today, can be answered, and where people can vote on the answers. And so, you know, that's not a perfect voting structure, but it's not nothing, and we can probably improve it as we move forward.
Now, this is something where you answer the questions and then we vote on the answers. So we answer the questions together and then we all vote on those answers. Now, I'm not sure how that's going to work. I'm not sure if it's the committee that's going to answer the questions and then we all vote on it. I'm not 100% sure how that works. But the reason I think this is so much better, I won't just say to what we have in place now. Actually, you know what? I will. It is better than what we have in place now, because maybe the questions, like, how happy would you be if your government was like, should we do this, yes or no? And you guys can answer here and we'll take a poll and we'll see how many people answer. Now, let's live in a world where, you know, the government would never, you know, influence that poll at all. Let's just live in that world. Wouldn't that be great to see? You know, they ask you about something. How many times have you turned on the TV and you're just like, why is that happening? Like, I voted for this person. What is this? This thing's going to negatively impact my life. What's happening? And then you go around and it's pretty much like the consensus from everyone you meet is just like they're upset. And it's like, well, then where are they getting this from? Why are they thinking this is a good idea if all of us think it's not a good idea? That's why I think what Dr. Peterson is trying to put in place would actually be good. Again, I will always say this, if they can stay true to it. Because if they have their heart set on one thing and we all answer a different way, I would love to see how that goes. Is it a conversation from there? Do they just override us because they're the organizing committee of the ARC? How does all that work? That would be very, very interesting to see. And again, I don't know the answers. I mean, hopefully we all find out soon. Now, let's hear about the conference, when it will be held, and how it's going to work. This is actually very interesting.
We're also announcing our first conference, slated for Greenwich, London, England, October 30th and 31st and November 1st, concentrating on issues metaphysical, cultural, and practical. So we would like this to be a beautiful conference. We'd like it to focus on elements beyond the political, cultural elements, philosophical elements, psychological elements, issues pertaining to the meaning of life, the significance of existence, and then also to become practical with regard to the realization of policy and to start that discussion. Some of this conference will be necessarily limited in its scale to 2,000 or so initial attendees. Some of it will be made open to as wide a swath of the public as possible.
Now, I don't know about you, but I found that interesting, discussing the meaning of life and getting into questions of that nature. I know it might sound weird, but in order to properly answer, what direction we should go in as responsible citizens, I guess it would be important to know the meaning of everyone's life. Now, obviously, that's going to be different for, so many different people. Everybody's meaning is going to be different. But there's going to be fundamental things in terms of what people want, core things, I should even say, in terms of what people want and what would be good for them, right? And the more that we can talk about that as people together, I think the clearer picture the ARC and the rest of us will have in terms of like where we should be going with things. So I found that very interesting. And what else I found interesting is when he said that it will be open to as much of the public as possible. So now that actually tells me something. This is probably not going to be held in a stadium. So we're probably going to be seeing, Dr. Peterson's regular crowd turnouts. I mean, 2,000 to 5,000. I mean, he says at one point that he wants 15,000. Like, I've heard him mention that. So I'm not sure where this is going to be held. It's going to be held in Greenwich, like he said, but I'm not sure what kind of venues they have. And so we're not going to be seeing hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people is what I'm getting at. And that's a little disappointing, but makes perfect sense.
The happenings on both fronts will be made available online insofar as that is pragmatically possible, either live or recorded for later reading, viewing, or listening. We'll have 2,000 people there. I hope to do a public talk in the midst of that and at the O2, if we can get that arranged. We'll get something approximating 15,000 people to that and do a series of discussions in one evening about the fundamental issues that the conference is going to discuss. And as I said, we'll record the conference proceedings so that people who are interested can see what's going on. We'll do it live online as much as that's possible, but we're also not going to sacrifice the utility of the in-person meeting to that end. And then we'll try to expand that as we move forward. You got to start on not too large a scale if you want to figure out how to make something work.
I'm all for the ARC. I love what they're doing. I love what they're about. It does sound right now, as he's explaining it, I don't want to say it's going to be like the WEF because their principles are completely different if you look at this. But it doesn't seem like there's going to be too much public there. And the public that is going to be there, like right now you're in America. Are you going to be able to pay whatever the price is on top of, flying to London? Probably not. A lot of people who are going to be there in the international sense are all going to be people who are, not quite the most regular people. They're going to be able to buy plane tickets and pay for the housing, the hotels, all that stuff, So it's a little discouraging to hear that, but understandable as well. I mean, they're holding it in London. What can we do? This is not like a regular Dr. Peterson tour where he goes around just giving talks. But my hope is that it actually turns into that, and that all these people, or at least him and a few of them, start traveling around and doing just that. Because I think, again, that would speak to them wanting the public involved, going around the countries that they want involved and speaking to those people and hearing those people out. I think that would be, I don't want to say the best way to do it, but I myself would be happy to see that. I don't know about you. Would you be happy? Tell me in the comments. Now, in this part, we're going to hear Dr. Peterson talk about something. Well, he's going to talk more about the ARC, of course, but he also touches on his hope for the people involved. And again, by that I mean the organizing committee. And he says some really interesting things.
We plan as well to render the operations of the ARC public and transparent, to operate under the assumption that each citizen has the inalienable right and is well equipped when engaged, informed, and consulted to choose and adhere to the desirable, sustainable, productive, and generous future path. So I'm hoping that everybody involved is wise enough not to think that they're the only person in the room or on the planet who's wise. You know, my sense of the world is that there are extraordinarily competent people operating at every domain, ranging from the sheerly practical wisdom of plumbers and carpenters and highway workmen and who do their job diligently and properly, complex though it is, to people who are operating in the realm of abstraction, and that for things to work out properly, everybody at every level has to value their productive capacity, be valued for their productive capacity, and be seen to operate as contributing members to the broader social endeavor and to be regarded as valid contributing members. And that's not some utopian dream, that's hard-headed reality. So the more people that participate and the more people we can consult, insofar as it's possible to aggregate a diverse range of voices, the better, as far as we're striving to be concerned.
So how far are they striving to be concerned? That is a good question to ask, right? Like, as much as I want to just play this and have you listen to Dr. Peterson, that is a good question for us to think of. How far are they striving to be concerned? Hopefully, it's as far as we're striving to be heard. That's the hope there. I'm going to say in good faith, based on everything I've heard, that, you know, their concern and our wanting to be heard can actually meet up and there's no gap there. And we'll have to wait and see, of course. And if I had to break this down to what he just said, because Dr. Peterson speaks like a professor, what I feel like he was saying was every person has wisdom to share. Every person on every level has wisdom to share. I myself have worked a myriad of jobs. I've worked at least 40, 50 different jobs, from grocery stores to factories to white collar jobs to in offices, in dirt fields. I've worked everything you could think of, everywhere. And I've met people who are so smart everywhere I go, from a factory to a office building. And it's never the person that's in charge. It's always somebody who's just working a position, and they'll be so competent and they'll be so smart. So everybody has wisdom to share. And if that is what he's saying, I feel like he's so right about that. And the more that we can listen to those types of people, because those are the people who see it, right? Somebody who's on the top of a company, they don't really see what the people on the bottom are going through. But the people at the bottom, they understand, for the most part, they understand what's going on in their management and upper management, but it never goes the other way around. Usually, again, I'll say not always, but usually the upper people never know what's going on at the ground floor. They never know the aches and pains and all the concerns and all the hardships that the people at the bottom are going through. So the more people we could include in that conversation, I think we'll have a very clear map. Because it's like, if you just kind of move forward with what everybody at the top thinks, you're not moving forward with a clear picture at all. You know, so many people downward are going to be unhappy. But if you go with a clear picture of what everybody at the bottom, quote unquote, bottom, are feeling and thinking and wanting, well, then that's more than likely going to have an outcome where everybody from the bottom up is going to be happy. And I think that's why the ARC is so concerned with not going about it in a, as they say, a top-down fashion. But next, let's hear about what the vision they want to pursue is. And when I say the vision they want to pursue, I mean not just the ARC, but us as well.
Domain 1, vision and story. What destiny might we envision and pursue such that we are maximally fortified against anxiety and despair, motivated by faith and hope, and voluntarily united in our pursuit of a flourishing and abundant world?
So that was a very short one, I know, but beautifully said, and I hope I can quote it properly. Maximally fortified from anxiety and motivated by faith and hope. I believe that's what he said. Just beautifully said by Dr. Peterson. But the reason that I left it so short, and the reason I'm ending this episode now, is because that is a question I would love to pose to you. The same way the ARC wants to pose all these questions to you and to me, I would love to pose that question to you and have you answer in the comments. What type of world do you want to see going forward? You know, so many times in the videos I make, we're always talking about the doom and gloom and what's coming when in regards to the WEF. But it's always good to focus on, and exactly what Dr. Peterson's talking about here, focus on what is it that you'd love to see? What kind of world would you love to live in? You know, what would you need to feel fortified from anxiety? What would you need to feel so you can move forward with faith and hope? Really good question to ask yourself. So answer in the comments, and if you had any value from this video, please hit that subscribe button. It helps so much. We got new shows on the way. We got researchers that I'm looking for, actually. If you actually are somebody who could be a researcher, let me know. And also, I'd love to just put out there real quick that if you're somebody who's going through some kind of oppression, or you're seeing some kind of, you know, looming WEF type of things in your neighborhood, in where you're from, whether it's digital IDs or 15-minute cities, please email me at coachcolin3@gmail.com. I would love to talk to you. I'd love to interview you and possibly post that interview online. Let me know. Thank you so much for watching. Other than that, episode 4 is coming soon, and I'm out.